You are the player, because your vision is our vision. The player.
Welcome everyone to ColecoVision 2400, a division of the ColecoVision's podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the homebrew game Vanguard for the ColecoVision from Collectorvision. But first, we're going to talk about the arcade game. And here to discuss this with me is Mr. RK.
Hey, how you doing?
All right.
I'm happy to be here.
Cool, awesome. So, we're going to start talking about the arcade game first. And I think what we'll start off with is when we first played the game and our initial thoughts of the game. I'll let you start that off.
Me? Well, Vanguard was one of those games where I probably walked right by it because in those days there was Scramble, there was Cosmic Avenger. There was a lot of side-scrolling games, and most of my take on going into an arcade in those days was what was available for the Atari or what it was making. I mean, Atari had a huge influence, which is why probably when I got a ColecoVision, I'm like, I never heard of Ladybug. I never heard. Wait a minute, where these games come from? Where's Pac-Man? So Vanguard was one of those games where until it became available for the Atari, I never heard of it. At least I never noticed it. I first heard about it, being in the Boston area, the rock station that a lot of people listened to in '82 was WBCN. And I was driving to work one night, and they had a contest that you could win an Atari 2600 cartridge of this game called Vanguard. And that's absolutely the very first time I heard of this. And I had an Atari. It was before I had a ColecoVision, but I had an Atari. I was really into it. And I thought, how come I never heard of this? And what they would do is they would play the musical tones, the Flash Gordon musical tones in the commercial. And I forget what the rules of the contest were, but if you win this cartridge, we'll have Vanguard land in your living room. I remember them saying that. So then I started seeing the commercials, kill the gong, yeah, it's really annoying. And then I was able to see it in an arcade, and I was like, oh, it's talking, it's colorful, it is a lot of fun. So I went out and I bought the 2600 cartridge. One of the things about the 2600 cartridge that really, really struck me was the box art, the painting of that ship, the weight of that ship from the rear, hovering, flying through this space tunnel on the box art. It was painted by Ralph McQuarrie, who did
really?
Excuse me, I believe so. Okay, people should check and put it in the comments below. But I think that was done by Ralph McQuarrie, and it was McQuarrie, and it was. It had his touch, and as we all know, Ralph McQuarrie did a lot. Before there was high-powered telescopes and satellites that could take pictures. NASA relied on Ralph McQuarrie to do a lot of paintings of like Saturn's, a view of Saturn from one of its moons, that kind of a thing.
Yes.
But he also did a lot of the concept paintings for Star Wars, and his work is beautiful. So, you got this really nice, piece of art with the game, and the game was not disappointing at all. This was not a irregularly shaped triangle like you got that got all distorted like what you saw in Asteroids. This was this ship was kind of cool looking, and it sort of was the same outline as what was in the arcade. So I was blown away by this cartridge, and I don't think I'd really played it. I think the cartridge came first. I think I played it first, and then I found it in the arcade, and that's where I was sort of startled to hear the speech synthesis. I'm like, oh, this game talks. Rainbow Zone. So, Bon Voyage. I love that Bon Voyage. Yeah, so this was a fun game. This is a great game. And so that's 82. So that was the first time I ever heard of it.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I remember when this came to my local arcade. I'm really big into Scramble. I love that arcade game quite a bit. And this was another side-scrolling shooting game that looked very interesting to me. I think one of the things that drew me to the game was, it was talking when I saw somebody playing it, which I thought was cool. But I really liked that you could shoot multiple directions.
Yeah.
With those 4 fire buttons. Of course, I wish they had an auto-fire feature because your fingers will cramp up like you would not believe trying to manipulate those 4 fire buttons as you're flying around that tunnel. But it's actually a great game. It was one of the games where you just wanted to keep playing to get to the end. To battle that Gond, because there was just so much cool stuff happening on the screen and all the different colors and all the different zones, how they look different from each other. My favorite zone is the one where you go through the split tunnel that has an upper level and a lower level.
Yeah, that's maddening though.
I love that part of Vanguard. It's like
it is.
Do I go to the top or am I go to the bottom? You know, it's actually pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Well, anyways, go ahead. I thought of something, but I just forgot it. So go ahead. Continue.
You know, I thought the names of the enemies was very interesting. You know, you had like this one called the Mist, which kind of looked like a top view of the Starship Enterprise with its nacelles flipped forward.
Yeah.
Then you had one called Harley, which looked like the Defender ship. Mm-hmm. And you had like Helm and Ammo, which looked like explosions kind of looking things. Those are the things that in the Rainbow Zone, they go...
Yeah.
That music is very earworm worthy as well. You had the base, the 2 bases, well, it was actually 3 bases. The Gareen, which kind of looks like a multi-eyed little invader-looking guy. A barrier. And, of course, you had my favorite enemy, the Kimless, which is that worm that dances as you get close to the end of the game.
Oh, the cocktail shrimp.
The cocktail shrimp, yes. I love that animation of that little worm or cocktail shrimp.
Yes, the anchors and cocktail shrimp screen. Yes.
Of course, you have the Romita, which looks like a fire arrow coming down at you. Then you have the Gond, which looks like a big techno-looking transformer fly or something like that.
Yeah, it does. It does. It looks like a big insect that was built out of neon parts. It's very. This game is in your face. That's what I like about it.
Well, what's neat about it is, as you go through all these different zones, you know, the way the zones are laid out kind of changes up the gameplay mechanic, keeps you on your toes, especially the diagonal ones where you got those little circles dancing around, where you got to try to figure out where do you need to be to avoid them running into you, and you got to make sure you keep that up and bottom fire button going as much as you can so they don't jump on you. It's awesome, really great game.
Yeah, and fortunately, it let you do the continue, so you could drop another quarter in and just keep going, so you could get to the end of the game. It might cost you quite a few quarters to get there, but at least you could get there.
Yes.
And see the end of the game.
That was something else I liked about it. If you had enough quarters on you, you could get way down the line in this game, which is kind of satisfying because, you know, you want to see the final boss. And that was a new concept for me at the time, is battling a final boss at the arcade. I was like, I want to see this guy. So I don't know how many quarters I spent that first time I played it, but I spent quite a bit trying to get there.
Yeah, it was... Vanguard was one of the early versions of a video game that had a game boss. So I actually did a little research. I think the first game boss that I could find was in 1980, the Phoenix mothership in Phoenix.
Oh, yes, that's right. That is a boss.
1981, it was Vanguard, the Gond.
Wow.
And then in 1982, the Zaxxon robot. So... You know, many people, and probably most people, never really got to see the Zaxxon robot in Zaxxon when you played the game. Yeah. I mean, I didn't until I had the arcade cocktail table, and then just by sitting there out of sheer determination.
I will see this robot.
Yes, and not having to use quarters to do it. I finally got to see this thing. Vanguard, I think, was probably the second game to have a boss at the end of the game, but it was the first. I believe it was the first home game on the Atari 2600 cartridge, and I guess the 5200, to have it continue, yes or no. So Vanguard was the first for a cartridge at home. Which, because also at home, sometimes you didn't get to see the end boss.
No.
Unless you put it, you were playing at one teddy bear or something,
You had two teddy bears in my case.
Just as a little side note here, I was working at a graphics house, and I was working in the midnight shift. And I worked with this woman who had like a 9-year-old daughter. And the Atari Ms. Pac-Man for the 2600 had come out. And I don't know if you remember when that came out. Everybody went nuts because it was such a great conversion, and it was nothing like Pac-Man, the Pac-Man cartridge. Everybody was going crazy. Everybody's playing it.
Yep.
And I'm really getting into it. And every night I'd go into work, and I would tell her my latest highest score. And she'd be like, how far did you get in Ms. Pac-Man? And I'd tell her. And she said, well, my daughter, again, who was 9, was like always double the score. And I'm like, oh, come on. And, so finally after about a week, I'm like, what is your daughter, like, gifted or something? She goes, oh, I should have told you. She's, like, only playing with 2 ghosts. And I'm like, anyway. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. It's funny.
Yeah, I said she's playing with the 1 or 2 teddy bear version. She says, "Oh yeah, didn't I mention that?" I'm like, "No, you didn't. No."
You can't get a high score with only 2 ghosts on the screen. You can high score.
No wonder she was clobbering me. I'm playing with 4 ghosts. She's not playing with 2 ghosts. Oh, God. Sometimes she plays with 1 ghost. I'm like,
oh, jeez.
Okay. Forget what I said about your 9-year-old daughter being gifted. I thought she was some, Anyway, so the thing is, the 2600 version, you play it, you go and find the arcade version, then you go home to the 2600 version, and you have even more appreciation for that cartridge because they did such a great job.
Yes, they did. They did a real impressive job with the 2600 version.
Yeah.
And especially the 5200 version.
Oh, yes.
That was really cool. Unfortunately, due to the video game crash in '83, Coleco wasn't able to get a port of Phoenix release. It actually shows up on a flyer from 1982 from Coleco, advertising all these different games coming out for it, and one of them in the picture is Vanguard, but it was never released, so it became vaporware.
So it wasn't coming out from Atari Soft? Coleco themselves were doing it?
I'm not for sure. It's on this flyer. I'll put a copy of the flyer in the show notes.
Yeah.
That announces the ColecoVision system and all this other good stuff, and it shows some of the cartridges that they're looking to be released for it. And, of course, one of them is Vanguard. They also have one here for Phoenix and one for Challenger that never came out, which is a shame because I would have loved for Vanguard to come out back then. I didn't have a ColecoVision when they first came out, but I did know of them. I had friends that had them. Loved playing that thing like crazy. I think Vanguard would have been another really great hit for them had they gotten released.
Cosmic Avenger was on there, and I did get a ColecoVision a few months after it came out, and that was one of the early games that I got. And it's a game that gets increasingly harder.
Yes.
As you play. And then, of course, once you get to the tunnels, then like the ice tunnels or whatever they are, it can get really difficult. And you had a chance, you could shoot torpedoes or you could drop missiles and then you could gauge and stuff. And it wasn't as frantic as Vanguard, but that's okay. It was a lot of fun and very colorful and really showed off the ColecoVision,
Well, now, before we talk about the ColecoVision version of Vanguard that was put up by Collectorvision in 2019. We're going to take a quick look at the box art, the manual that it came with, just to check it out. Okay, well, here is the box for Vanguard from Collectorvision. Isn't that cool?
It's very cool. I love that they got the Vanguard logo at the top, right off the arcade unit. The one thing I never understood about the side art, and again, as a little side note, it says Vanguard by Centuri.
Yep, Centuri.
Centuri. Now, this is off of Wikipedia, but this game went through several companies. It was developed by TOSE, I guess, TOSE, published by SNK in arcades in Japan, and then Germany in 1981. It was licensed to Centuri for manufacture in North America and to Zaccaria in Italy, and then Cinematronics converted the game to a cocktail arcade cabinet in North America. So it went through 4 or 5 companies.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. There's a side spine right there. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I like how they included a shot of the game screen, and it looks really, really good.
It looks like a traditional Coleco cartridge box.
Yeah, they do a heck of a job with these boxes. I got to give them that. Plays, sounds, and scores just like the arcade game. Awesome. Of course, also in the box, we have the cartridge. Kind of a plain-looking cartridge.
Well, they all were, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. But it's still cool. These are custom made by Collectorvision. They've got a mold that they make these cartridges. And they're really nice. Yeah. And, of course, we have our instruction manual. My favorite thing about the instruction manual is it's got full-color photos in it. I love that. That's my favorite kind of manual to have, is the ones with the full-color photos.
Now, it's interesting. They got a monochrome version of the Ralph McQuarrie art that was used on the Atari cartridges.
I noticed that. Yeah, I was going to say something about that.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. It's a good drawing, though.
Oh, I love that painting. You can just feel the weight of that ship.
Yeah.
Lumbering through that tunnel. I love it.
But they give you a nice little introduction here, and how to play the game, all the different zones. Your different options, you have like a normal mode, 4 ships. You have an easy mode, 6 ships. And you have my mode, simple mode. They should name that the Willy mode. 8 ships.
Yeah, they do have simple, easy, normal, and I'm like, what? I tried playing normal this morning. Guess what? Normal is hard, which I think normal is arcade level.
Yes.
Simple is pretty good. Now tell me, my favorite part of every ColecoVision manual, and I've mentioned this before, and even in the Coleco tabletop things, that little paragraph, the thrill of discovery. And it always had an uneven white space because they always left room to paste in the name of the game that the manual came with. Does ColecoVision include that? The thrill of discovery?
Nope, it's not on here.
Oh,
that would have been awesome. It would have been.
The thrill of discovery.
The thrill of discovery.
Yeah, this is just the beginning. You're going to find all kinds. Yeah.
But there is an Easter egg hidden in this game somewhere. I've not unlocked it yet. I have no idea what the Easter egg is, but there is an Easter egg in this game.
There is?
Yes. Oh, yeah, it says right here. Where'd it go? Where is it? Oh, note that there is an Easter egg.
Huh.
So, I don't know what it is, but it's something you can do to unlock something. But I'm not 100% sure what it is. Even if I found out, I probably wouldn't say anything because it's kind of fun to try to discover these things.
What could it be? Could it be the 2600 version?
I doubt it, but it'd be funny. But it shows all the different enemies in their full color form as they appear on the screen. Really great graphics in this game.
I think they upped the graphics a bit from the arcade even, because the ship that you're piloting changes colors and pulsates, whereas in the arcade it's multicolored, but it doesn't change colors.
No.
In this game, in the Collectorvision game, it does.
Yeah.
The colors are animated, so they sort of upped, and all the enemies. Especially those oval eggs things in those tunnels that were plays the old time 1890s music, which always strange to me anyway, even in the arcade. But they sort of pulsate, and so the the animation and the sprites and everything in this game are really something to see.
Oh yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
So what were your... wait a minute, before we get to that, though, I forgot to mention, this game also has speech synthesis in it as well. It features 11 of the phrases from the arcade game as well. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, it does. Bon voyage.
Bon voyage. Bon voyage.
Yeah.
So, what were your initial thoughts of the game when you gave it a try?
Well, it's impressive and a little intimidating because you think, oh, I'm going to fail as badly as I did at the arcade because it looks so much like the arcade. But I played it for a while. I played the simple level and I played the normal level. So I loved that it had the speech synthesis, and I thought it was a really nice feature that added an authenticity to the game, making it more like the arcade. However, on the downside, just like Berserk on the 5200, it freezes for a second to get the speech out.
Yep.
I found the speech, I could kind of understand what it was saying, but sometimes I had to look into the upper left-hand corner because I couldn't understand when it said rainbow zone or stick zone or whatever, rainbow. And so I'd be like, it would have been nice if you could have turned off the speech synthesis so it wouldn't freeze when it said it, and I wouldn't have to lose focus of what I was doing to try and decipher what it was saying and take my eyes off of what I was doing to go up and read what zone I was in. Not that it matters what zone you're in. You really don't care. You just want to keep flying and playing. But I thought it was really nice, and the music cues that came from Star Trek the motion picture, which eventually became Star Trek The Next Generation, I guess, that they used the music for, and Flash Gordon.
Oh yeah,
they're pitch perfect. I mean, they are, and right now, because I played it a little while ago, right now I can't get the Flash Gordon version out of my head. It's in my head. The first time I played the game, I played it with the standard ColecoVision controllers, and I found it pretty accurate. Now, I'm right-handed, so I held it in my right hand, and I used the control stick on the ColecoVision controller with my left hand, and I fired with my index finger and thumb with the two fire buttons. Of course, these controllers are a little difficult anyways. And when I had a ColecoVision back in the 80s, I had a Wicco bat stick. Yeah, the red bat stick with the white button on the top. Because I used that on the 2600 and then the ColecoVision, and I would plug it into the ColecoVision with a V cable so I could have the touchpad to control, the numbered touchpad and stuff. So I never really played with the ColecoVision controllers, and this was one of the first times, and man, it killed my fingers. It killed my hand. So I switched to my left hand. I held it in my left hand, and actually, you know what? I got that reversed. I held it in my left hand, controlled it with my right hand because I'm right-handed, and I ended up switching, using the joystick with my left hand and the control buttons with my right index finger and thumb. And I got further that way than I did. It was easier to use than holding it in my left hand and controlling it with my right hand. Then I plugged in Ed Ladin's controller.
Oh yeah.
And for the ColecoVision, it's like a big metal counter. It's almost like the surface of an arcade cabinet. You get the buttons and everything's there, and you get the arcade joystick and everything. Playing this game with that controller, you might as well be at the arcade.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I mean, if you have an Ed Ladin controller and you want an arcade experience, then this game will do it for you, and vice versa. So those are my impressions. I don't know how. I was never a guy who read scores. The only time I ever knew I got a high score was when it asked me to put my initials in. I'm like, oh, gee, I must have gotten a high score. I never really paid attention to that. It was more about like personal best, like let's see how far I can get this time. But I think I guess it was I only remember looking at the score the first time I played with the ColecoVision controller. It was 14,000, 13,000 or something, which I know isn't very high because I used a couple of continues. So this morning I played with the Ed Ladin controller on normal, which is the arcade version.
Yep.
I had to continue about 5 times to get to the Gond. So I didn't even bother looking at the score because I knew it would be pitiful. But at least I got to the Gond, and I got to see everything, and it was quite beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, you only continue like that on the first level of this cartridge. After you defeat the Gond and you move on, you only have what ships you have remaining, and then the game's over.
Yeah, so that I would have to go to simple level to get through upper levels.
The Willy level.
Oh, yeah. I'm just waiting for a big freaking teddy bear to show up on the screen.
But this game is really good on the ColecoVision. Now I've been playing my game on the Phoenix console from Collectorvision, which has the FPGA in there and stuff. Gives you a real nice crystal clear picture. Looks really good. The game controls are kind of nice. I didn't use the original ColecoVision controller because I knew it was going to kill my hand if I did. So I used Aladdin's controller like you did, and I used my Famicom NTT data controller, which has the keypad in the middle and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And that worked extremely well. And I really like how they have you where you can hold down the fire button and it keeps firing. You don't have to keep pushing the crazy fire button, which is really, really nice. And I like how they made one fire button where it shoots straight ahead. The other fire button will do the vertical shots up and down for you.
That's true.
Yeah.
But when you press the button where it shoots straight ahead, and depending if you're accelerating or decelerating, it could come out the front or the back.
Yes.
But also, if you move vertically up and down, those fire from the sides. It'll fire from the sides.
Yes. Yeah, when you hit the directional controller, it'll fire that direction.
Yes, but if you're firing from the side and you move the joystick, it does not also fire from the front and back, which I found interesting. So it was, it kind of gave you a choice on how you wanted to fire, which I thought was nice.
Well, I thought it would be kind of nice where I like how they had it divided up. The one button was forward and the other button was up and down. Mm-hmm. It would have been nice when you had the one shooting forward, it would shoot backwards at the same time as well.
Yeah.
Like it does for the vertical.
I guess I looked at it like if you were used to playing the 2600 version where, depending on which way you move the joystick, it would fire. Yep. It does that with one button, but with the other button, it just fires from the side. So it kind of gives you the choice. And, you can use 2 buttons. I would say with the Aladdin controller, I was using the 2 buttons. Yep. With the ColecoVision controller, I was using 1 button and then kind of, moving the ship around to get it was killing my fingers.
Well, during normal gameplay, I would use the forward fire button in the horizontal areas, and I was using the vertical fire in the rainbow zones, the diagonal areas, more than anything when I was playing the game.
What I don't understand to this day is the way you connect with a video game. The way to become part of the video game is through the controller. And on those consoles back in the 80s, the controller was always the weakest link to the whole game playing system.
Yeah, it can ruin your experience. A bad controller can ruin your gaming experience, that's for sure.
I mean, I went out and got a Wicco stick because the 2600 controllers were kind of, they'd wear out my hands. The ColecoVision controllers I found very uncomfortable. It's like holding a portable phone or something. And, I hear that people who had like an Intellivision complained about that controller and those discs. The 5200 controllers are legendary. So it's like, why is it that the weak spot in every home console back then was the controller, which should be the starting point of when they design a game. And it seemed to have been an afterthought.
Yeah. Well, at least there was aftermarket companies out there making controllers. Of course, now we have like modern versions with Aladdin making these awesome controllers for these retro consoles.
Yeah.
Which is, they're really good controllers, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And of course, you have console alternatives too, like the ColecoVision Phoenix, where you can use the original controllers. You can use flashback controllers on it. You can also use Super Nintendo controllers on this thing, and this Famicom Super NTT controller. I mean, that's the way I would play this game, is play it on the CollectorVision Phoenix with either an Aladdin controller or the Super NTT controller. It plays really good.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a strong, comfortable controller with this game.
So now let's give some credits to who did this game here. This was produced by J.F. Du Bois and Toby St. Alban of CollectorVision. The game was tested by Mr. Brian Burney. The documentation and the tools for making the game was done by Daniel Bienview. Oh my gosh, he's going to slap me around. Bienview. Bienview. I am terrible at pronouncing people's names. I fear I'm going to go to a convention and goes, you remember me? You pronounced my name wrong. Pop! Oh, sorry.
I'm glad I have a one-syllable last name.
I know, it makes it easier.
Yeah.
The Mega Card bank switching information was provided by Mr. Alec Mall, who does a lot of cool stuff in the community. The box was done by Vincent Godfroy. Pretty cool. And the manual was done by Chris Daring and Vincent Godfroy. Pretty cool.
I have to say that all of this stuff, especially the coding, is a mystery to me because I'm not a programmer. I sort of understand graphics a little bit, and I've done computer graphics over the years for different games, websites, interfaces. And so, I mean, over the years I've done different things. But I have to say that when I play a game like this, and then I see a list of all these guys, from the guys who coded it down to the guy who did the box and stuff, you know, you have to say these guys are all like highly creative geniuses. They really are. I mean, they really are. They're all artists to me. Good job, guys.
And instead of using the word port, they used reprogram to the ColecoVision by Chris Daring.
Funny you should bring that up.
Uh-oh. Buckle in.
Buckle up, everybody. I believe that the word port has been misused for quite a while. And I would like to put a stop to it. Because I read an article back in one of the computer magazines back in the 80s when I was just devouring this stuff, that a port is when, let's say, you're porting from an arcade or porting from one system to another system. And it doesn't have to be a game. It can be any program. A port is when they share similar code, and then they have to either add or adjust some of the code to make it work on a different platform. Now, we could get letters about this. We could get all kinds of comments. I may not know what I'm talking about, but this is what I believe I read back in the 80s. So think of a port. You're hooking something up and you're porting it, you're shooting it over to another system. Let's take, let's take Pac-Man, for instance, just for argument's sake, for the Atari 2600. That is not a port. And yet I've heard reviews of the 2600 Pac-Man. Well, here's a port of Pac-Man that didn't come out to it. It's not a port. It's a conversion. It's a reprogramming. Basically, you have guys who, like, you know, probably these guys on Vanguard, who sat down and they dissect the arcade version and then they rewrite it for the system that they're programming for. That's not a port. That's a conversion. That's a reprogram. It's almost practically, you know, it's original programming. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember reading. So
makes sense to me.
Well, it makes sense to me too. But so when I hear, like, because it's not that I'm like nitpicking on grammar or anything. It's when I hear, well, a port of such and such a game come, I get all excited thinking, oh, a port. I mean, it's like, it's like the arcade, only they translated it to where, it's about, I'm like, no, it's, and then I find out it's a conversion. It's like they reprogrammed it from the ground up for that system. So, anyway, again, send all your hate mail to Willie.
Oh, man. So, anyway, that was Vanguard from CollectorVision for the ColecoVision. As always, everyone, thanks for watching.
You are the player, because your mission is our mission. The player. Atari.
I play on ColecoVision.
You are the player. You are the player.